In today's video, I'm going to be going through SAT Practice Test 3's Math No Calculator section. I've scored perfectly on back-to-back SAT Math sections. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you the most efficient route to every single question type on this practice test. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. A painter will paint N walls with the same size and shape in a building using a specific brand of paint. The painter's fee can be calculated by the expression N times K times L times H, where N is the number of walls, K is a constant with units of dollars per square foot, L is the length of each wall in feet, and H is the height of each wall in feet. If the customer asks the painter to use a more expensive brand of paint, which of the following factors will change? Well, the height of the wall and the length of each wall won't change, neither will the number of walls, but K, which is the constant of units of dollars per square foot, will change if they're using a more expensive brand of paint. So our answer there is going to be answer choice C. All right, moving on to number 2. If 3r is equal to 18, what is the value of 6r plus 3? Key thing here is recognizing that if 3r is 18, if we double that, we have 6r, which means we double 18, get 36. Then we add 3 to that, and that's going to give us 39. Okay, so our answer there is going to be D. That's going to save us time rather than dividing by 3r to both sides, solving for r and plugging back in. We want to recognize that it's a double. Therefore, it's going to save us time, get us a D as our answer there. Moving on to number 3. Which of the following is equal to a to the power of 2/3 for all values of a? Well, if we have a to the power of 2/3, that means that we have the third root, since we take that denominator of our exponent, and that'll be our root. And then our numerator of our exponent is what goes inside with our variable. So what goes inside of that root with the variable. So in this case, it's going to be the third root of a squared, which we see as answer choice D. All right, moving on to number 4. We have the number of states that joined the United States between 1776 and 1849 is twice the number of states that joined between 1850 and 1900. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the letter E for this earlier time period, and I'm going to use the letter L for that later time period of 1850 to 1900. So we know that 2 times the later time period of 1850 to 1900 is going to equal the number of states that joined in our earlier time period E. Next, if 30 states joined the United States between 1776 and 1849, which is that earlier time period, so we can go ahead and plug in 30 there, and X states joined between 1850 and 1900, so now we're plugging in X for L because they're giving us that variable. Which of the following equations is true? Well, now we can go ahead and find which equation matches ours, and we see that that's equation B, so our answer there will be B. All right, moving on to number 5. If 5 over x is equal to 15 over x plus 20, what is the value of x over 5? In this case, we actually have to go through it and solve for x first, because even if we flip this 5 over x, all we would end up with is x plus 20 over 15, which obviously is not any of our answer choices. So we're going to go ahead and solve for x. So to do so, what we're going to do is multiply each side by x here to get rid of it on our left side. We got to do the same thing to the other side. So now we're going to have 15x on our right side. Next, we got to multiply, get rid of this denominator. So that's going to be x plus 20. We multiply each side by that. So we've got x plus 20 times 5 now. We can go ahead and distribute this 5. We're going to get 5x there. 5 times 20 will also give us 100. So we're going to have 5x plus 100 is equal to 15x. Now we want to isolate x on one side. So we're going to subtract 5x from each side. So when we do that, we're going to have 15x minus 5x. That's going to leave us with 10x equals 100. From there, we can go ahead and divide each side by 10, and we're going to end up getting 100 over 10, which we know is equal to 10, which will equal x. So our answer there is going to be answer choice not A, because we have to solve for the value of x over 5. See, I tricked you there, just like the SAT would. We need to solve for x plus 5. We know that x is 10, but we have to take that 10 and divide it by 5, which we know then gives us an answer of 2. So our answer there is going to be C. We always want to pay close attention to what we're asked to answer the question with. In this case, that's x over 5, which is going to be answer choice C. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to question number 6. So we've got, if xy is a solution to the system of equations above, what is the value of x minus y? In this case, what I want to do is I want to look to add or subtract in order to get x minus y. Now, in this case, what I have to do is I actually have to add them together and then divide them by 5. Because if I add them together, I'm going to get 5x minus 5y is equal to negative 14 and then plus negative 6, which gives me minus 20. Then, if I go ahead and divide all of this by 5, I will be able to get my x minus y is equal to negative 20 over 5, which will give me negative 4. So now I've solved for x minus y super quickly, and my answer is going to be C. So what you want to do in these situations where you have to solve for something like x minus y, or maybe it's 3x plus 2y or something like that, is you want to find a way where you can add or subtract your bottom equation from your top equation, and sometimes you have to multiply one of those equations by some constant, and then use that to get to your answer the fastest. So anytime you see a stacked equation like this, always be looking to use that trick. So in this case, we got our answer. Our answer there is going to be C. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to number 7. So number 7 says the function f is defined by a polynomial. Some values of x and f of x are shown in the table above. Which of the following must be a factor of f of x? Well, a factor is going to be where f of x is equal to 0. So we see that that occurs when x is 4. So therefore, if that occurs when x is 4, then x minus 4 is going to have to be a factor. So we go ahead and find our answer choice there, and our answer there is going to be answer choice C. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to number 8. So we have the line y equals kx plus 4, where k is a constant, is graphed in the xy plane. If the line contains the point CD, where c does not equal 0 and d cannot equal 0, what is the slope of the line in terms of c and d? Well, since d is our y coordinate, we're going to have to take that y coordinate and subtract 4, since 4 is our y-intercept. So we have to take into account that we have that plus 4 at our y-intercept. To do that, we have d minus 4, divide that by c, which is our x, and that's going to end up giving us our slope. So as we can see, our answer here is going to be answer choice A. All right, moving on to number 9. We see that number 9, we've got another stacked equation set, so we might be looking to use that here. Now, sometimes you're not going to end up using the stacked equation set, but they just put it, like that just to show you the formulas. In this case, we have a system of equations above. K is a constant, and x and y are variables. For what value of k will the system of equations have no solution? Well, keep in mind that there's no solution on a graph of equations when those equations have the same slope but different y-intercepts. So we need to find a way to get these equations the same slope. Now, one thing that jumps out to me right away is I see I've got a 4 there and a 7 there. So I've got different constants. So as long as I get the slopes the same, their y-intercepts are going to be different. So that's all I got to do. I have to get the same ratio x to y in both of these problems. So I see I'm given a ratio of 4x to negative 5y in this bottom problem. So since I have to solve for x, what I want to do is I want to keep my x on top of my ratio because it's going to cut down on the amount of work I have to do. And I'll show you that as I go through this. So I'm going to have kx over negative 3y. Okay, so that's my ratio there. And I need that ratio to equal 4x over negative 5y. Now keep in mind, you don't really even have to have the x's and the y's in there. That's just to sort of make sure that you set up your ratio right. So once you set it up and you're certain it's right, if you want to get rid of them, you easily can. From there, I just want to solve for k. So I'm going to multiply each side by negative 3. And then that's going to give me my answer. So I multiply each side by negative 3. I'm going to end up getting negative 12 over negative 5, which is just going to equal 12 fifths. So that's going to be my answer there. It's 12 over 5. Okay, so I go through, find my answer there. My answer is going to be A for number 9. All right, so the reason that I told you to put your x up top here, right, the variable we wanted to solve for, is because if you're ever doing a ratio like this, by putting the variable you want to solve for on top rather than on the bottom, what it's going to do is it's going to save you time, because as you can see, I multiply by negative 3 to each side, multiply by negative 3, and then I'm going to get to my answer. Now, in contrast, what if I put the variable I wanted to solve for on the bottom? I'm going to show you how much longer that's going to take, right? So I'm going to set up the same ratio, but this time I'm going to put k on the bottom. I'm going to show you how much longer it takes. In this case, I got to multiply each side by k, multiply each side by k. Then I got to multiply each side by 4, multiply each side by 4. Then I got to divide each side by negative 5, divide each side by negative 5. And then I got to go through and I got to solve for all of this. So as you can see, by putting the variable you want to solve for on top in your ratio, you're going to save a ton of time. So there's a tip for you on number 9. All right, number 10. In the xy plane, the parabola with equation y equals x minus 11 squared intersects the line with equation y equals 25 at 2 points A and B. What is the length of A to B? In this case, what you want to recognize is that you have some number getting squared, okay, and it's intersecting at y equals 25 at 2 points. So in this case, since we have y equals x minus 11 squared with x minus 11 in parentheses, what we want to recognize is that whenever x minus 11 in parentheses, whenever that is equal to 5, it's getting squared, which we know will equal 25. So we know that x minus 11 will equal 5 when x is at 16, and also when x is at 6. Okay? Or, I'm sorry, we know that x minus 11 squared will equal 25, when x is at 16, and also when x is at 6, right? Because negative 5 squared will also get you 25. Then all you got to do is find the distance between those two, which will be 10. Another way that you can think about it is like this. If you have the quantity x minus 11 getting squared, you know that that's going to equal 25 whenever it's 5 squared. Then all you got to do is think about moving 5 to the right and 5 to the left. Add those two together, you're going to get 10. Either way, answer is going to be answer choice A. All right, moving on to number 11. Okay, and I'm going to erase some of this work that I did for number 9 so you can see number 11 a little bit better. All right, so looking at number 11, we're given a set of rules essentially, and we have to solve for what's true regarding this diagram or this figure. So the figure above, we got K, L, and M are lines, and they all intersect at a point. If x plus y is equal to u plus w, which of the following must be true? And then we're given 3 different, potential things that could be true, and we got to solve for which pairs or which of these are correct, which ones are false. So let's go ahead and do that. So we've got x plus y is equal to u plus w. The other thing we want to identify here is that vertical angles are going to be equal. So I'm going to show you right now which vertical angles will be equal. Anytime that you've got angles that are crossing or lines that are crossing, in this case we'll look at K and L, we're going to form vertical angles with y and u. Therefore y is going to have to equal u. Okay, z is going to have to equal w, because those are also vertical angles. And then x is also going to have to equal t. Okay, so from our vertical angles, we also have that there. Now, next thing that we want to do is recognize that z and t are going to equal each other. Now, why would z and t equal each other if they're not vertical angles? Well, if we look at line M, that's creating 180 degrees on each side of it. 180 degrees there, and then we're also going to have 180 degrees on this side. Now, keep in mind, if w plus u and x plus y are equal to each other, I'm going to mark those in orange. Okay, if x plus y is equal to w plus u, then t and z have to equal each other as well. So t has to equal z. All right, well, if z has to equal t, we solve that one. Next up, do we see where x is equal to z? Well, we know that x is equal to t right here. Now, if x is equal to t and t is equal to z, well, then that means that x equals t, which also equals z. Therefore, x is going to equal z as well. Now, as far as y equaling w, they're not vertical angles. I'm going to erase this so you can see it better. We know, as far as y equaling w, they're not vertical angles, so they can't be the same on that. But then also, we have no reason to believe that they would equal each other because we've got x and y are going to equal the same as w and u, but there's nothing stating that w is going to have to equal y, therefore 2 is incorrect, so 2 is false. So our correct answer here is going to be 1 and 3. So we find 1 and 3 in our answer choices, and we see that 1 and 3 will be answer choice B. So B will be our correct answer for number 11. All right, moving on. Number 12, we've got a quadratic equation. A is a non-zero constant. The graph of the equation in the xy plane is a parabola with vertex CD. Which of the following is equal to D? All right, what we want to recognize here is we have to find that x-coordinate of our vertex first. Once we find that x-coordinate, we can plug it in and then solve for what is going to equal D, right? That y-coordinate of our vertex. Well, we know that from these zeros, right, we have a 0 at 2. So we're going to have a 0 at x equals 2. So that's where the y-intercept is, or I'm sorry, that's where the graph crosses the x-axis, so where y is equal to 0. We're going to have that at x equals 2. We're also going to have that at x equals -4. Now our vertex is going to be in between our zeros. It's going to be at the middle point between our zeros. So therefore, in this case, we know our vertex, our x-coordinate for our vertex, which is C, is going to have to equal -1 because that's the middle between 2 and -4. Now that we've solved for what the x-coordinate of our vertex is, we can go ahead and plug it into our equation. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to plug in -1 for x, and I'm just going to do it in the way that it was written up here. So we're going to have -1 minus 2, which we know will end up giving us a total of -3. Then we're going to have a -1 plus 4, which we know will end up giving us 3. So now we've got -3 times 3 times a. When we go ahead and do that, we're going to end up with -9a is equal to y at our vertex. Therefore, d has to equal -9a, and our answer will be A for number 12. All right, so the key part there was recognizing that the x-coordinate of our vertex is in the middle of our zeros. All right, number 13. We've got an equation, we've got, it being set equal to something. You're probably thinking this is going to be really difficult. It's not. I'm going to show you how you can solve this question super easily. So we've got it's true for all values of x where x cannot equal 2 over a. A is a constant. What is the value of a? All right, key thing here. We want to recognize that a times x times -8x has to equal 24x squared. So that's the key part and how this question becomes super easy. A times x times -8x has to equal 24x squared. In this case, we can go ahead and simplify this down to -8 times a has to equal 24. From there, you can obviously see that a is going to end up equaling -3. But if you want me to go ahead and do all the steps, I can show you that as well. We go ahead and divide each side by -8. We have 24 over -8, which will give us a is equal to -3. Answer there is going to be B. So what we're looking at here is a times x times negative 8x has to give us that 24x squared. We can easily solve for a super quickly, and we get our answer of B. So hopefully that tip is helpful. All right, 14. What are the solutions to 3x squared plus 12x plus 6 equals 0? First thing that I see immediately is because all my answer choices are dealing with this plus or minus some sort of square root, I'm immediately thinking quadratic formula. If you don't know the quadratic formula, I'm going to show it to you right now. It is negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, now keep in mind that your a's, your b's, and c's are determined by whatever the coefficient in front of x squared is going to be your a, whatever your coefficient in front of your x term is going to be your b, and then whatever your term with no x is going to be your c. All right, from here, the other thing that jumps out to me is I see 3 is a factor of 12, of 3 obviously, and of 6, so I can go ahead and factor 3 out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to have 3 times x squared plus 4x plus 2 is equal to 0. Now from here, I see that my b term now is going to be 4, so I'm going to go ahead and plug that in, negative 4, plus or minus the square root of 4 squared. 4 squared I know will give me 16, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is going to be 2. Next thing that I'm going to do is I have to divide that all by 2 times a. I see a is going to be 1, so I'm just going to split that over 2. Now, I can go ahead and scroll down a little bit so you can see more of my work here. But negative 4 over 2, I know that that's going to simplify to negative 2. Then I'll have plus or minus, and that's going to end up being square root of 8 because 16 minus 8 is 8. Now from there, what I want to do is I want to factor out from my square root of 8 my 2's, okay? So we could rewrite 8 as 2 times 2 times 2, or as 2 times 2 squared. Now, we can go ahead and take out 2 squared then and put a 2 in front of our square root, and then we got to leave that 1, 2 there. Now we got to keep in mind we still have to divide that by 2. So when we do that, that 2 is going to cancel, and we'll be left with plus or minus the square root of 2. So we'll have negative 2 plus or minus square root of 2, which we see will be answer choice A. All right, so that'll be our answer for number 14. So the key thing there is recognizing that we're going to want to use quadratic formula. We know that from our answer choices showing that plus or minus and then a square root sign. That's pretty much an indicator we want to be looking to use that quadratic formula. All right, question number 15. We've got, once again, a series of statements. We have to identify which ones are true, or which ones must be true. Keep in mind that's a key part here, must be true. All right, 15. The equation above shows how a temperature F measured in degrees Fahrenheit relates to a temperature C measured in degrees Celsius. Based on the equation, which of the following must be true? All right, well, I see in 1, we have a temperature increase of 1 degree Fahrenheit. So if F increases by 1, is equivalent to a temperature increase of 5/9 degrees Celsius. Is this true? Yes. Okay, we can keep in mind that we would be distributing that 5/9 here and here. 5/9 times that negative 32 will just give us some sort of constant dealing with our intercept. But we see then as F increases by 1, our degrees Celsius will also increase by 5/9. Therefore, 1 is true. So I'll put a T there for true. Next up, number 2, a temperature increase of 1 degree Celsius is equivalent to a temperature increase of 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, if we were to go ahead and flip this, right, and we wanted to write how many degrees Fahrenheit, or how many degrees does the Fahrenheit increase based on a 1 degree increase in degrees Celsius, what we'd have to do is we'd have to flip this fraction, okay? Because we know that degrees Celsius is going to increase with Fahrenheit by this ratio. So all we got to do is flip it then, right? Just like I talked about in practice test 1, if you watched that video, in order to flip this, all we got to do is flip the fraction. And we see that we're going to have 9/5, C is equal to F. Okay, so if degrees Celsius goes up by 1, our degrees Fahrenheit will go up by 9/5. Keep in mind I'm ignoring the constant here as far as the intercept because we don't really need to consider that as we go through numbers 1 and 2. Now if we take a look at number 3, we have a temperature increase of 5/9 degrees Fahrenheit is equivalent to a temperature increase of 1 degree Celsius. That's contradicting what we found in 1 and 2, which we know are both true. Therefore, 3 is false, and our answer here has got to be 1 and 2, which is answer choice D. All right, we know x has to be positive. We're looking for one possible solution to the equation above. All right, well, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and apply my x cubed to my x squared and my -5. So I've got x cubed times x squared. I know I have to add my exponents then because it's multiplication, not raising an exponent to another exponent. So I'm going to end up with x to the 5th minus 5x to the 3rd. And then I'm going to also go ahead and add 4x to each side so I can set this equal to 0. Okay, so that's going to cancel. I'll be left with 0 over there. So plus 4x is equal to 0. From here, what I can do is I can go ahead and factor out an x. So when I do that, I'm going to have x times the quantity x to the 4th minus 5x squared, and then plus 4. Once again, from there, I'm going to factor down even more. So I'll have x times x squared. And then I see I have minus 5x squared and plus 4. So that means I have to have a minus 4 and then another x squared and then a minus 1. Okay, and that's going to be set equal to 0. From there, there's two possible answers to this. Okay, we only have to list one. We want to find where our x squared minus 4 equals 0, and then also where our x squared minus 1 equals 0. So I'm going to erase some of what I wrote above here so I can show you this a little bit easier. So if we're going to do x squared minus 4 equals 0, we would go through, we'd see x squared equals 4, and then we could go ahead and take the square root of each side. We could see that one possible answer here is 2. Same thing with x squared minus 1. We would go ahead and set that equal to 0. We'd see x squared equals 1. We would see that since x has to be positive, another answer here would be x is equal to 1. So correct answers here are 1 or 2. In this case, we can just go ahead and answer with 1. All right, moving on to number 17. All right, so we've got if 7 over 9x minus 4 over 9x is equal to 1/4 plus 5 over 12, what's the value of x? Keep in mind, we always want to pay attention to what we're asked to answer with. In this case, that's just the value of x. So 7/9 x minus 4/9 x, that's going to leave us with 3 over 9x, which we know is going to equal 1/3 x. So I'm going to write that as 1/3 times x. 1/3 times x. All right, next up, we got 1/4 plus 5 over 12. In order to add or subtract fractions, I need a common denominator. So I'm going to turn this into a 12 by multiplying it by 3. I'll multiply 1 by 3 as well. Now I've got 3 over 12 plus 5 over 12. That's going to give me 8 over 12. So 8 over 12. So now I've got 1/3 x is equal to 8 over 12. From there, what I can see is 8 over 12. I can simplify that down to 2 over 3. And then from there, I'm going to have 1 over 3 times x is going to equal 2 over 3. And I see my answer for x then is going to have to equal 2. So my answer for the value of x is 2. All right, moving on to number 18. We've got another one dealing with triangles. So we've got two isosceles triangles are shown above. If 180 minus z is equal to 2y and y is equal to 75, what is the value of x? All right, so we're looking to solve for x here. Well, to do so, we need to end up solving for this angle right here that I'm putting in blue. Okay, so to solve for that angle, we know that 180 minus z is equal to 2y, y is 75. So 2 times y, which is 2 times 75, is 150. So I'll have 180 minus angle z is equal to 150. To solve for z then, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 180 from each side. Okay, 180 from each side. That's going to end up leaving me with negative z is equal to negative 30, which therefore means that angle z is equal to 30. So I can go ahead and plug that in for 30 there. And then, since I know it's an isosceles triangle, I can go ahead and do 180 degrees. And that was a bad 180. I can go ahead and do 180 degrees because there's 180 degrees in a triangle, minus that 30 degrees, which represents angle z. Then I divide that by 2 because since it's an isosceles triangle, the angle that I marked in blue that we have to solve for is going to be the same as that other angle that I'm marking in blue right now. Okay, and since they're the same, that's going to equal that angle, which we're going to call y. Okay, we need to solve for angle y in order to solve for angle x. So I'll say that's equal to angle y, and then we see that that's going to equal 75 degrees. From there, what I'm going to use is the fact that along this line, which I'm going to put in orange, along this line here, I have 180 degrees right there. Okay, so from that, I can go ahead and take that 75 that I found for that y value there, and I'll do 180 minus that 75 degrees is going to give me my angle x, which I see is going to equal 105 degrees. Okay, so my answer here for the value of x will be 105 degrees. All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 19 now. So we've got at a lunch stand, each hamburger has 50 more calories than each order of fries. If 2 hamburgers and 3 orders of fries have 1,700 calories, how many calories does a hamburger have? Key thing here is that we want to solve for the calories in a hamburger. Okay, so we don't want to solve for fries first. That's going to take us longer and lead to extra work. We want to solve for hamburgers. So we know each hamburger has 50 more calories than each order of fries. So if it's got 50 more calories than each order of fries, then it's going to be equal to the calories in a fry plus 50. Next up, we know that we have 2 hamburgers, which we're going to mark as 2H, and 3 orders of fries, which we'll use as F, has a total of 1,700 calories. How many calories does a hamburger have? From here, what we want to do is substitute in for F, so that way we can solve for H. So to substitute in for F, we're going to rewrite H equals F plus 50, and we're going to write F is equal to H minus 50. Now we can go ahead and substitute in. So we're going to have 2H plus 3 times H minus 50 is equal to 1,700. From there, we distribute our 3 to our h and then also to our minus 50. We're going to end up with 2h plus 3h, which is 5h, minus 150 is going to equal 1700. From there, we go ahead and add 150 to each side. We're going to end up with 5h plus 0, adding 150 to 1700. That's going to give us 1850. So now we have 1850 is equal to 5h, and I'll scroll down so we can see this a little bit better. We've got 5h is equal to 1850. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to divide each side by 5. Divide each side by 5, and that's going to end up giving us 370 as our answer. Okay, so 370 calories are in a hamburger. All right, moving on to number 20. And notice how in 19, by solving for the hamburger first, we didn't have to go through after solving from the fries and add 50. All right, number 20. In triangle ABC, we have a measure of angle B is 90 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this out as I like to do with triangle problems. Draw this out. We've got angle B. It's going to be 50. Put A here, so we've got A, B, C. Just like that. We know BC is 16, so we'll go mark 16 there. AC is 20, so put 20 there. Triangle DEF is similar to triangle ABC, where DEF corresponds to vertices ABC respectively, and each side of triangle DEF is 1/3 the length of the corresponding triangle ABC. What's the value of the sine of F? Well, the sine of F is going to be the same as the sine of C. Okay, we see that right here. So in order to solve this, what I'm going to first do is I can go ahead and divide all of these side lengths by 4, because 20 over 4 will give me 5, and then 16 over 4 is going to give me 4. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and put those in, and I recognize that I have a 3, 4, 5 triangle. Okay, 3, 4, 5 triangle. So I have to have a 3 over here. If you don't know what a 3, 4, 5 triangle is, anytime that you've got a 5 as your hypotenuse, and then a 4 as one of your side lengths, your other side length has to be 3. If you have 5 as your hypotenuse and you have 3 as one of your side lengths, your other side length is going to have to be 4. Okay, that's because of the Pythagorean theorem. All right, now that I've solved for that, I just got to solve for the sine of F, which I know is the same as the sine of C. I know that the sine is going to be my opposite angle over my hypotenuse. I see my opposite angle here is 3. My hypotenuse is going to be 5. Therefore, my answer is going to be 3 over 5 for the value of sine of F. So hopefully this video is helpful. If it was, make sure to like and subscribe, as well as comment video requests that you want to see in the future. In addition to that, if this video is helpful, please consider donating. It helps me continue to put out these videos for free. Also, if you're looking for private SAT tutoring, college essay editing, and college admissions consulting, be sure to check out my website. With that being said, I'll catch you in the next one.